Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm looking at the downfall and multi-year bear market for altcoins. Now I've got several questions that I think are relevant to the topic. I want to answer these questions looking at the charts and probabilities, discuss a few fundamental reasons around what's happened to altcoin this season, what we can do about it, and hopefully if you're serious for your trading and investing, what you can do moving forward into the coming years. I also want to throw in a couple of ideas here and potentially what if the bottom is in this particular scenario. Hit the like, subscribe to the channel if you want more of this no nonsense, less echo chamber type of content. Okay, I reckon it's a good place to start with essentially why I'm doing this, but also a look at a couple of quotes here from some of the greats. Mark Douglas, a well-renowned trader, investor. He wrote several books. Maybe you've read some of them, absolutely fantastic. But he was really well known for his views on trading psychology. In this particular quote, I think, or basically all of his quotes are really, really good, but this one here, the degree to which you think you know, assume you know, or in any way need to know what is going to happen next is equal to the degree to which you will fail as a trader. I reckon this is pretty damn relevant when it comes to altcoins in particular. Now, I've done several videos on altcoins in the past. I mean, dozens and dozens of videos on altcoins. I think many people think I might be a bit more of a Bitcoin maxi, and who cares at the end of the day? It doesn't matter what you think or I think. It just depends, or it just matters upon the next trade that you make. And like he goes on to say, 5 fundamental truths. Anything can happen. So no one has the answers to this. And like I said, I think it's really relevant when it comes to altcoins in particular, because it attracts a gambler's mindset. And this is going to get onto another reason why I'm doing this video. 5 fundamental truths. Anything can happen. 2, you don't need to know what is going to happen next in order to make money. This is from Mark Douglas. I know a lot of altcoin people think they need to know what is going to happen next. And especially in the markets, people always ask why? Why is this happening? You don't need to know what is going to happen next in order to make money. There is a random distribution between wins and losses for any given set of variables that define an edge. An edge is nothing more than an indication of a higher probability, hopefully that's what we're going to find out in today's video, of one thing happening over another. Every moment in the market is unique. And the second one here I really liked was when you really believe that trading is simply a probability game, concepts like right and wrong, which we hear about all the time. You were wrong about this, you were right about this, or you won this, or you lost this, or win or lose, no longer have the same significance, because at the end of the day, anything can happen. If you can remove these ideas from your vocabulary and your thoughts when it comes to trading and investing, it will make life a hell of a lot easier, as Mark Douglas says himself. So that comes back to why am I making this video? I guess really simply, I want to know what's going on in the market as well. I don't know if it's going to exactly play out, but I want to at least give myself the best possibility, the best possible chance, and arm myself with the information that's out there to hopefully make the best decisions. And hopefully I can share some of that with you and you can use it for your own trading. And generally when that happens as well, I get a lot of great feedback or from people saying that they have been helped a lot, especially they came to the markets for altcoins to try and trade everything, and then they realize that the game doesn't have to be that difficult. It can be really simple, and you can put together a very simple plan. And so I show you the reviews here for TIA, not to brag, but just so you can see that there are many people who have gone through the same process of trying to figure out what they want to do in the markets. Basically, a lot of people come here trying to make a lot of money off altcoins and then realize that they just lost all their money, lost all their time, and they could have just made things or done things a much more simple way. That can still be trading altcoins, but you can do things far more simply. You don't have to get sucked into the hype cycles of all of these people online showing you all the money and the riches and all this sort of crap, because at the end of the day, they're probably not making money from trading themselves. I think a lot of us know that at heart. So yeah, like I said, subscribe to the channel if you want more of this type of content. Make sure you've got the right channel. There are obviously a lot of spam bots out there. Just look for the subscribers and the correct spelling of the name here. So that's the reason why I'm making this video, because I obviously want to arm people with the best information they can. There's a lot of other information out there. Plus, when I go through this analysis, it helps me out as well. You know, I get to learn as I go, and then when I teach, I can hopefully learn even more. You've probably experienced that in your life as well. When you teach, you get to learn even more so. So the first thing here is the downfall and multi-year bear market for altcoins. Now, that's not just a title, but altcoins, in the case of others, and that's the dominance chart, this is excluding the top 10. So that would be your Bitcoin, ETH, stablecoins, Solana, XRP, whatever's in the top 10, excluding those. And the other 2 million altcoins, they have been in the downfall and they are in a multi-year bear market. This is a 12-month chart of others. 1, 2, 3, 4. That is multi-years to the downside here for altcoins. Now, I hear what you're saying. Well, what about if that's the low now and it's going to go up from here and it's all just a whole lot of fear? Anything's possible. I'm not of that view, and I'll share with you why. I still think altcoins can go up, and I'll also share that with you as well. 3 markers for a revival of this altcoin season. What I'm looking out for if there is going to be any sort of an altcoin revival here where they're going to see explosive gains, how I'm going to assess the success of an altcoin season, because we've seen a couple of times now in 2024, or at least in this cycle into 2025 now, of altcoins actually running, but is it successful? I want to see it do as well as previous cycles. So that's something I'll share there as well. And what if this is the bottom? Well, that's really, really simple. If this is the bottom, we've got plenty of markers to show us where we could be getting in from that point. Okay, so these top 2, altcoin signs this cycle is over and altcoins fighting. I've got some other notes on this side. Look, when it comes to altcoins, we're definitely seeing them fighting for attention, just attention within the space itself, basically fighting for relevance within the space, within the narratives that come and go. Obviously, meme coins were a big one. Everyone's heard about that. People have probably heard about AI, and then you start to hear about other narratives, AI agents, AI this, real world assets that, utility tokens this, and they just come and go over and over and over again. And because we haven't heard about a particular narrative for however long the human psyche needs to not hear it for, so maybe it's like 6 months, you haven't heard real world assets being mentioned for, and then you hear it again in 6 months, you're like, oh, maybe that is going to come back and we're going to get a revival on that particular narrative. And then it just comes and goes like every other narrative. And not many of them have actually stuck. Now, there is something that seems to be sticking in the, let's say, the real world, and that would be AI. You're seeing tech stocks that are predominantly AI. They continue to climb in the face of everything else that's going on in the world at the moment. You know, the wars in the Middle East, Trump flip-flopping on tariffs, anything else that's going on, you know, interest rates not coming down, and these tech stocks are still going up. So maybe AI has a fighting chance if there is anything real that's going to come about it and it's able to cross over into cryptocurrencies. And another big one that I think when it comes to the attention is that there is a lot more attention on stocks at the moment, on real estate because of how high prices are. And when I take a look at the assets chart here, top assets by market cap, metals are becoming a pretty hot topic. Metals being commodities, and commodities also becoming a pretty hot topic. Now, I've talked about this every so often. It's part of the cycle analysis work that we do. And as I showed with these TIA reviews, if you did want to check those out or anything else we have to do with TI Premium, we have a sale coming up next week. Link in the video description is for the weekly report. So you'll get that and you'll be notified when the sale comes up. End of financial year for Aussie sale, but everyone is getting that sale code. Okay, so when it comes to the cycle analysis that we do, there is more attention now, at least from what I can see, coming on to going into commodities as well. And that could be energies. You can see oil has been up. Obviously, we've got the fear of the war in the Middle East again. But in this case, the price is actually, if we can break through these levels and hold above them, it's starting to take out some significant resistance. There was a significant resistance there at $65. We've got another one there, it's $75, and as I'm filming, it's sitting around 74. So oil could be breaking higher here, and maybe over the coming months we'll start to take out this downtrend that we can see on a macro scale here. Other energies that have been going up, you can see heating oil here has been rocketing this month, up 26%. And this is for commodities that people actually have to use, which leads to inflation and higher prices. Natural gas has been up this month 18%. And then we've got the commodities index, which is also rocketing, which is made up of energies, softs, which are the foods that we eat, materials that we use for clothing and things like that. You've got cotton over here as well. Coffee's obviously been up, cattle, obviously beef, orange juice, corn futures, soybeans, which are used in the foods for the beef, and of course wheat as well. So this index is a basket of those. It has bounced again this month, now up 11.2%. Hasn't yet broken the downtrend, but I think there might be some more attention coming into commodities, which of course takes away from other gambling assets. Eventually, we should see some sort of pump. How long is that? How much is it going to pump by? That is some of the questions that we want to answer here. And of course, within those commodities, silver. Silver is a big one that I've been talking about here on the channel, hitting a new fresh 13-year high. So I think it's going to start to get attention, just like what happened to gold. Gold also got quite a lot of attention, and that's all part of our end of the cycle move here. So winner's curse phase. So that is basically what we do there in the TIA premium, looking at the cycle analysis. But of course, we're looking at cycles here for altcoins. Coming back to some of the questions that I've answered here, the signs of this cycle is over and altcoins fighting. I made the mention there about the rest of the markets, what's going on. I think that's pretty critical when it comes to trying to assess why this thing isn't happening right now, why the market isn't necessarily seeing any life in altcoins. Bitcoin is obviously the other big story here. So the other narrative that keeps taking away from altcoins, eventually it might give back. But for this cycle, this multi-year bear market for altcoins has been a multi-year bull market for Bitcoin. Obviously, the price has been up quite significantly from November 22. We're now in June of 2025, still holding out here just above $100,000. And I think one thing, at least for the case of alts, this would be not necessarily if the bottom is in, but the case where alts could get their revival and could see an altcoin season. The first thing I'm looking at is a breakout of this high here, somewhere around that sort of 114, 115, depending on which month Bitcoin breaks out of this 8-year resistance, which is pegged to the exact peak of 2017 bull market and the exact peak of the 2021 top, so 2021 bull market top. It's so far rejected it twice now, December 24 and January 25. And then just last month in May 25, we got close, not close enough, but we did get close. So this could be part of the consolidation at higher prices that leads to a breakout above this level. Potentially the breakout above this multi-year resistance could stem some more excitement into the space. So I still think there is hope for an alt season, but not until certain things happen. And I'm getting even dialing in just a little bit more here with some of the altcoins. So we've got signs that this cycle is over, 3 markers for altcoin revival, success of an altcoin season, and how I'm assessing that for the excess. And then what if the bottom is in? You know, have we just made a massive mistake? And if people are looking to dump absolutely everything today, what if the bottom is in? There is always an opportunity to get back in. So I'll just revise a couple of these 5 fundamental points here that Mark Douglas has discussed in his lifetime as one of the best traders, most successful traders, and very much into trading psychology, which he's written many books about. Okay, so the next thing here to get to that alt season, I've posted about Bitcoin dominance before. At the moment, sitting around 65%. Now, there is resistance at around 70%. So if Bitcoin dominance runs up, that would crush altcoins. And you'll see that in some of the other charts as well. That would definitely crush altcoins. You might even see some more money flow out of, or you'd have to see money flow out of stablecoins that would increase the dominance percentage for BTC, drop the dominance percentage for stablecoins, and most likely also drop the dominance percentages for the altcoins as well. Now, if it hits 70, what happens next is the big key driver here for the altcoin season. So far, we've hit 70, 72% 3 times in the past, and it's had quite a significant rejection. The first one was in late 2017, and that one there was quite a significant alt season, along with this period here. This one here in the first half of 2017, this is when XRP blew up. Ethereum blew up. They were the two major players back in the day. That's when I started getting into crypto around March, April of 2017. So I lived through this one here. Then I lived through this one here, and I held some of these coins back down thinking that things were going to rise yet again. So I've been through that cycle. Now we come back to the 2021 cycle. Again, getting on board, making a few gains here, but then it all washes back out. And this time it's just washed out, let's say, relatively slowly or drawn out. No reason other than the money just seems to be flowing mostly into Bitcoin. And maybe there is also a lack of relevancy for altcoins apart from basically just gambling on them and flipping them. There's no real use after 10 years, even longer. You know, XRP was out since 2013, 2014. And the majority of these coins, you might be an XRP holder and you think there is use. Okay, I'm not getting up here for that. But the majority of these coins over the last 12 years have proven to be absolute dog shit. They don't do anything. So I think they've lost some of that relevancy. Flipping, gambling, different story. When everyone's here at the poker table, there's more money in the game and then they want to flip those. But I digress. Looking at this 72%, should we get there and reject, that is one of the first signs there for a potential altcoin season. But it has to reject pretty hard because along the way here, it has to correct more than what we have seen in the corrections on the rally up. So that's these two areas here. These two areas where Bitcoin dominance corrected, went down, alts and stablecoins potentially went up. In most cases here, it was altcoins that went up. The first one here is late 23, early 24. That's that one right there. So dominance went down, altcoins went up. We know that happened. And then again in late 2024, early 25. So this was late 23, early 24, then late 24, early 25. Maybe we're leading up somewhere to the end of this year for another move like that. So over the coming months, we start to rally up. And then again in quarter 4 or quarter 1 of 2026, that's when we start to see another altcoin season. But that then begs the question of success of an altcoin season, because we've seen it twice now this cycle. So that was the first thing there, looking at the Bitcoin dominance. Maybe it hit 70%. I'm not even going to cover this here because we haven't even got to 70%. I'll talk about that later in future videos, maybe at the end of this one. But I digress. Looking at this here, others, dominance, talking about the success of altcoin season. And so far this cycle in our multi-year bear market on altcoins, I know I say it, I know it triggers people. I'm not going to be very popular for videos like this, but I don't care. If I cared, I would have stopped videos a long time ago. We're doing this for many, many years on the channel and people still think I care. So those figures to the upside within this multi-year bear market of altcoins here, we're on the others chart, the others dominance. We've only seen rallies of 6, so 5.94. So that's, just call it around number 6. That's the low to the high. We're looking at a percentage here. That low comes in at 7.8 and it ran to nearly, 14%. So basically 8 to 14% in dominance. And the other time within this cycle, the biggest move was November through to December. And that was only 3.7 percentage points here. So far in this multi-year bear market, it's failed to do anything more than half of what the previous cycles did. So these are the previous cycles, the previous altcoin seasons, basically the times that people relate to altcoin season having mega moves to the upside, huge percentage points, taking 11 to 12% away from the market, away from the top 10. Bitcoin, ETH, stablecoins. So pulling that 10% into altcoins. Those two periods were 2017. And then you had this one late run into late 2017 and early 2018. And this one particularly in April, if you need to know, was EOS. That was a big one back then. A good one that I got onto nice and early. But anyway, looking at it here, that were the good old days. Looking at it here, 12%, and then the late move into 2021 was about half of that. Look at the low to the high here, about 8. So a little more than half that, 8%. So we still haven't even done the weakest gain of the 2021 cycle. The biggest gain was the 12%, and then you had the 8%. This cycle, however, we've done barely 6% and barely 4%, and the market is still running down, currently beyond a 4-year low. So this is the low price right now, and you have to run back 53 months to get to that low point. So far things are still looking pretty dire. I know I did promise some successful markers, 3 markers for an altcoin revival, and what if the bottom is in, what can we do about that? I think it's important to have a look at where the market currently is right now, because they are the facts, that's the data that we have, and then we can start to predict after that point. Now, on top of that, as I showed in the intro, the multi-year bear market, really what I find an interesting one here is that the market has been up. This is from 2014 for 8 years. Remember, I'm on a yearly chart. Each of these candles represents 1 year. And at the moment, the market is now down 3 years. So a bit more than that. Let's get a little bit closer to the market because it paints a clearer picture of time frames. To the upside, that's 93 months. And to the downside, we're currently in our 41st month to the downside. Those that follow the analysis, the Gann analysis that we often talk about with TIA Premium, and then assessing cycles, note that we're almost halfway into this. So here is the one little positive here. You've got 50% in price, which we often look at. Do I have this on one of the charts for you guys? Somewhere. We'll look at 50% in price, but there is also 50% in time. So 93 months to the upside. Here's the low to the high. 93 months, we're at 41. So half of 93, of course it's a half month, but you're looking at 46 and a half months. We're currently at 41. So if we have to run out, forget this is just a time frame there. We're looking at the top to the low, 46 and a half months would take you out to roughly November, December, which lines up with other altcoin season cycles as well. And those periods when the market has run relatively well. You can see it did it in late 2020. So looking at Q4 and Q1, 2020, 2021. It also did it again in 2020, late 21 as well in Q4. You had that run up in October, November, December, and then basically turned around at that point. Also 2017, you had an early run starting from January, February, March, big move here, lasted into Q2, and then you had it again at the end of the year. So November, December, running into Q1. So Q4, Q1. If anyone's been following the market, they are pretty familiar with that Q4, Q1 time period. If that happens again, maybe we have a more significant move at that time. In the meantime, there is still the possibility of smaller runs like this, which gets everyone excited. Maybe it's another summertime move, runs up into another resistance. You got resistance at sort of 9%. This thing gets everyone excited again and then crushes them. That's basically what's happened over the last 3 or so years from this top. We're looking at 41 months down to this low point. So 3.5 years of these half as good alt seasons as what we had seen in the past. So there are a few markers around how this altcoin cycle could be over, especially if you're only looking at the next couple of months. I'm looking out a little bit further here, Q4 to Q1 perhaps, for the others dominance chart to have a turnaround. So my notes, I've got below support at 9% as well. So let's chuck on a couple of these lines here, and the support level is roughly around 9%. That level is the chance of the altcoin season that I have here. The reason I'm pinning this one down is because we've bounced twice off here, and each of those times has been the second time was less than the first time and basically broke down from that point. And unless we get back above 9%, I can't really see this being any sort of mega alt season. I think there's going to be some small gains here. You might go from 7% up to 8.5%, or a bit of a spike out to 9.5%. But I can't see it being one of these mega sort of altcoin seasons unless it can break the previous support, which may become resistance. Along with that, you've got the downtrend also lining up. So while it remains under this level, pretty difficult for it to break back above. But if the alt season can get above that level, then you've got a bit more free ground again, and you only have the resistance levels of the previous tops. So the 9% marker is the big one here about the alt season being over. Above that, then we can start to switch that into the revival of the alt season, turning that into a marker for a altcoin season revival. 9% on the others dominance chart. The final one I want to look at here for the others dominance, this is for the revival, is if it can come back down to 6% over the coming months, which starts to line up with the timeframes, find some support at 6%, and then begin to bounce relatively strong. You can see this one here was quite strong. This was back in 2021, so a nice strong move there. You had a small bounce here, then you had a longer move to the upside. You got the bounce off 6%. And prior to that, back in 2017, there was also pretty strong support at around 6% before it rallied all the way up to 12%. So another strong 6% move. But at that time, 6% went a lot further. That little bit of money went a lot further throughout the altcoin market because, of course, there was a lot less altcoins and not everything was trying to fight for that attention and relevancy. You know, everything was still quite fresh and new. So 6% is coming up there as another marker for an altcoin revival. Now, USDT dominance has been a big player in this market. This is also on the way down. So this is a great sign for a potential revival if it can break 3.7%. So just like the others chart that has been in a macro bear market, multi-year bear market, after a significant bull market, been running up for many, many years. USDT dominance is in a similar space here. It's been running up for many, many years, topping out around 22, middle of 22, late 2022, and has been on a downtrend since then. However, has not broken the 3.7 to 4% level yet. So I think if we can get a breakdown of this, there it is, the line across the screen, that is going to be your run to success. And that's looking at one of my markers for an altcoin revival because there's going to be a lot more money flowing out from stablecoins. And the other chart that almost mirrors this would be USDT dominance and USDT and USDC dominance. So that percentage point is somewhere underneath 5%. You can see the double bottom here, and so far it has failed to break out of that top at 8.8% on the way down again. So with the USDT dominance, it's still in a rock and a hard place between several other support levels and then resistance levels. So any breakdowns from here are probably going to be those smaller moves to the upside, getting everyone excited again about alt season. And if it bounces off that low, that would be where things go south again. So it'd be like a short-term move for alts, people getting excited, saying you're wrong, you're right, falling into the trap again here that you know, a lot of people fall into, especially when they come into the market. They have this idea that everyone has to be right and wrong about markets. And then it all starts to turn against them as USDT rallies. So that's a couple of the markers there for the potential revival if USDT is below 3.7%. That now leads me over to the total 3 market cap. This is the TIA total 3 market cap. You guys can find that right here. TIA crypto total market cap. That's part of the indicator suite dashboard. Links in the video description. This one allows you to customize the cryptos that are within the chart. So I can exclude Bitcoin, exclude ETH. I can exclude the top 10, and that's going to adjust the chart. And I can exclude all the stable coins as well. So there we go. That excludes the top 10, but we want to keep the top 10 in this case, just exclude the stable coins. So let's start with the downsides at play. We're looking at total 3, the TIA total 3. If it is down below 560 billion, that's a pretty weak start here. That would mean that it's not that altcoin season is over, but it's making it much, much more difficult. If we get a breakdown of 440 billion, you could basically call it over. That would mean that the loss to the downside would very much extend more than this and almost equal the previous losses of the previous cycle. And the time frames, so we're at 18 weeks now from the top to this low, that would then also extend and would be extremely detrimental to the whole space. The low was 18 weeks so far. We're currently at 28 weeks, but we haven't put in the new low yet. Should it break down next week, which I don't think is the case, but that would mean you're looking at around 29 weeks to the downside. So basically, if this breaks down any time from here without putting in a new all-time high, you've got a massive overbalance in time and price to the downside. So a lot further down on time and a lot further down on price. Now, while we're on this chart, the TIA total 3, a break above, so something to revive us, 700 billion on this market cap, the TIA total 3 market cap. That's the 50% level right here. That would be the first revival for an alt season. The second revival is above the tops, sitting at around 960 and closer to the 1 trillion. So for a round number, you'd just be looking at 1 trillion. A break above 1 trillion is basically that revival. First signs, 700. Second signs above 1 trillion, because then you have open ground above that level. But of course, these previous tops also line up with 50%. That's why I'm starting at 700, because it's closer to the market right now. So while we're on this, signs of a successful alt season, should it happen, we're looking at projections more than the previous markets, the previous cycles. 780 billion to the upside, 730 billion to the upside. This cycle, we've only seen roughly 400, and then all the way, if we go all the way back down, it's 470. Now, measuring it from the turning points where you start to hear and feel that alt season, because at the end of the day, people sort of feel this thing out as opposed to objectively measuring it. That's the idea around alt seasons. And then right here, 500 billion. From this turning point to the top, from that big move that we had late in 24, that was about 520 billion. And so I'm talking about these 2 points in particular, because although it's had quite a successful move, 400, 500 billion to the upside, the majority of people, at least from the comments that I see, still don't believe we've had an alt season. They're still waiting on alt seasons like the previous cycle. Maybe you're in that boat too. I think that's kind of what people were expecting, 800 billion at least from turns. And if you want to measure the entire thing, it's something like $1 trillion. But so far, we've had half that, just a little more than half that in the case of the last move to the upside. Now we've seen a pullback of almost the same amount, 520 billion. Okay, so it's in a bit of a tough spot here. That's why I'm saying the success needs to come or start above the $700 billion mark, and anything below sort of 400, 450 billion, it's probably lights out for this cycle on altcoins. We're not there yet. There is still a chance. And that chance also is on total 3. This one here is just the one that you can get on TradingView. So if you don't want to get access to this with the predictive cycles, the forward returns, and the GAN Swing Pro, then you can use this chart here. But just note that it does include the stablecoin, so the reading might be slightly different, as obviously is the case here. Sitting above 800 billion at the moment, breakdowns of 660 billion. That's going to be pretty dire for the entire altcoin space. And in the case of total 3, you can see in the top corner, you want closes above $950-ish billion to start that next leg up. And that would be your signs of potentially the beginning of an altcoin season revival. And that's not too far away from where the market is. However, we are in a downtrend, a short-term downtrend at the moment. You're looking for about a 16% gain here on the total 3 market cap. So let's recap the downfall and multi-year bear market for altcoins, looking at reasons why the cycle may be over. But more importantly, I guess for the hopium here, look at 3 markers for an altcoin revival, the success of an altcoin season, at least how I'd be determining the success of it. And what if the bottom is in now? What can you do? So I've got the data here, the numbers. You may wish to take a screenshot. Altcoin signs the cycle is over. Larger correction on TIA total 3. So if that came down like we showed on this chart, if that blew below $440 billion, probably a good sign it's over. If the others D below support at 9%, so if it remains there, there may be some subdued rallies up to that level or slightly lower, but I don't know if we're going to see that mega altcoin season. It definitely wouldn't meet my definition of success of an alt season. Others, dominance, 93 months up, now in a multi-year bear market. I think if we can get to 46 towards the end of this year, 46-ish months, and turn around from that point, that would then fall into the success of an altcoin season. But for now, you're basically still in a multi-year bear market with the 93 months up. You've got a pretty long time to come down. And what hasn't been met yet is a total 3 below 700 billion. So that's actually a positive for the cycle so far. If it fell below that and stayed below there, that's a pretty dire sign here for the cycle being basically over. Nothing is 100%. You need to see those closes on the bigger scale, but that would start to put a lot of these nails in the coffin for me. Okay, so over to the hopium. Hit the like, subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying something a little bit different to the masses, just looking for the hopium day in, day out. But here we go, a bit of hopium. 3 markers for altcoin revival, USDT below 3.7%. And that's because at the moment, we're just seeing more of that money flow between different alts as opposed to one big mega altcoin season. The others dominance above 9%. Again, that's going to give more money back to the market space, and there's going to be less overhead resistance. Others D support at 6%. So if it came down, hit 6% and then rallied, you might have a few percent in that. That could be enough to throw more of that money into the altcoin space. I don't know if it's going to meet my definition of a success of alt season, but it could be significant enough that allows people to get out of their positions after losing so much to the downside. But nonetheless, TIA total 3 above 700 billion, the TIA total 3 above 1 trillion, even better. But this is the first sign here because it's closer to the market. You just risk the possibility of it failing. The higher it goes, the better chance it continues on. But of course, the more gains you miss out on. That's just all part of the probabilities of trading, no matter which markets you're trading in. It's just an edge is nothing more than an indication of higher probability of one thing happening over another. Mark Douglas. Okay. And then markers for an altcoin revival. These are the ones I had here. ETH, I didn't mention this so much, but you've got $2,900 and $3,800. They could be some key markers there that could see the revival of the space. Right now, ETH has definitely continued to fail here at $2,700 multiple days. I think we can get above 29. That could be a little bit more breathing room for the rest of the market, and then it's got to get back towards those previous highs at roughly $3,700, $3,800. And then the success markers, in my opinion, are more than 11 points up on the others dominance chart, and then total 3 up over 700 billion from the swing. So that's what we were watching just before on that total 3. You want to see over that 700 billion mark, and that would take you to about $1.3 trillion market cap for our total 3 market cap. So the downfall and multi-year bear market of altcoins. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section. Do you agree with it? Disagree? Anything that you want to add into this? Either way, the market has been down. That's something we can't dispute. The rallies have all been much weaker. It is definitely favoring a trader's market, but I like the idea that we can still believe that there is possible altcoin season coming up. I want to measure the success of that. Hopefully you do too. Let me know your thoughts on success. Like, subscribe. I'll see you guys back here at the next video. And if you want me to do an update like this, just let me know in the comment section. I'll come back to it every so often. Cheers, guys. Have a great weekend.